Star Wars Andor is the single best show I have ever watched. On Sunday, I made a bingo card in which I gave a bunch of predictions about exactly what would happen in the next 2 arcs of the show. I was so proud of these bingo cards. I was confident that they'd be true. Which left me utterly humiliated when I watched the next arc and found out that the vast majority of the predictions I made were complete and total nonsense. Bingo cards have 25 squares. I could only think of 15. Of those predictions, 11 of them turned out to be false, which might not seem too bad considering there's a whole arc left, a few of them could happen, until you realise that 7 of them almost certainly aren't going to happen anymore. This bingo card was an actual farce. Despite this, I am far from defeated, because in this video, I'm going to rewrite that goddamn bingo card, and I'm going to get some stuff right for the next arc. So first, we're going to go over my bingo card and discuss the things I got right and wrong, and then in the second half of the video, we're going to make another bingo card, and we're going to get all of it right, okay? Every one of those goddamn predictions is going to be correct. Let's go over a few of them. Let's start with one of the ones I got right. This lady turns out to be a spy. I probably have to elaborate on that one, because most people don't know who this lady is. So basically, in the last arc, whenever Gorman's spies were talked about, there was always a long and ominous shot of this woman. So Tony Gilroy absolutely wants us to think this woman is a spy, and sure enough, in the next arc, there she is on the streets fighting the Empire. So evidently what happened is that either she realised she was about to get caught and escaped, or the Empire caught her and then she escaped. Either way, she got caught being a Gorman spy, and so she got to take this box off. Then we move on to Cyril starts going behind Dedra's back, believing he's doing it for the Empire. Now, I was debating whether or not to give myself this tick, and I ended up not doing it. Basically, my prediction was that Cyril and Dedra would fall out, which I got right, I just didn't write it on the bingo card. This is because my prediction was that they'd fall out because they would start going behind each other's backs. We already knew that Dedra was going behind Cyril's back, so surely Cyril was going behind Dedra's back. He ended up becoming a lot more sympathetic for the Gorman cause, which is why I tried to tick that box off. Now, there is an argument to be made that he did start going behind Dedra's back, and that's because there's a scene here where he's talking to the Gorman front and says they should frame outside agitators for it to try and deceive the Empire and clear the Gorman front. So he's trying to go behind Dedra's back, but he doesn't end up going behind Dedra's back because she slaps him in the face and turns down his offer. But if you count trying to go behind Dedra's back as going behind Dedra's back, then yes, I get to take this box off and I almost get a bingo, but I don't count it, and so I don't almost get a bingo. Or a bingo. So next up we have the fact that I completely misinterpreted Bix's entire character arc, and now all 3 of these things on my bingo card are never going to happen again, because she is never going to show up in the series again. And that's what's going to happen to a lot of characters. With Cyril's death, there are now 9 big characters in this show who in theory could die because they don't appear in Rogue One or any other piece of Star Wars media. Now, there are some people who want and think all of them are going to die, and I really don't think or want that to happen. So if there are 9 characters left and 1 arc left, then that means anybody who says that all of them are going to die implies that the next 3 episodes are going to average 3 death scenes each. Just a reminder that every single death scene comes with a bunch of other scenes attached to it, because you need a bunch of scenes to set up the death scene, and then you need a couple scenes of the characters reacting to the death scene, like for example. So the way I interpret it is, if you want all the characters remaining in the show to die, then effectively you want the next 3 episodes to be nothing except death scenes. And I'm sorry, but you do need some actual plot, so I'm not sure if you even can kill off the remaining 9 characters and do a good job of it, and maybe they'll prove me wrong, but I don't think so. I think what's going to happen is a lot of these characters are going to go off on their own path, and then we're never ever going to see them again. And we know that sooner or later they will get killed by the Empire. However, I think it's better if we don't see that and we just, like, let them drift away and vanish into the galaxy, you know? Biggs, for instance, has abandoned the base on Yavin so she can go serve in another group of rebels on another planet, presumably. And she is going to die. She is going to get shot by a stormtrooper or something. However, I don't think she's going to appear in the next arc, and she's just going to disappear off into the galaxy on her own path in the rebellion. So that's my prediction. I think we're never going to see Bix again, and I think there's quite a lot of characters we're never going to see again. Now, you could make the argument that I actually ticked off this box because Bix's mental state actually did continue to decline. I don't think so. I don't think her mental state continued to decline. And we don't see much of her in these 3 episodes, so we don't know for sure, because we mainly focus on Cassian. However, I do have a couple of points. For instance, on Coruscant, we see her taking drugs. However, on Yavin, she presumably can't access drugs, because I guess those drugs may not be available on Yavin, and the rebellion probably can't spend their money on a drug addiction when they've got a literal water fight, so I imagine the Bix probably can't access the drugs she was addicted to. Therefore, I'm going to assume that Bix is most likely off drugs now. My point is that if you're no longer addicted to drugs, then your mental health has probably increased. So I don't think you can argue that Bix's mental state was decreasing, but if you want to be really, really generous to me, you can say that I ticked off 5 things and almost got a bingo. But I didn't. So I said in the second half of this video, I'd be rewriting that bingo card to actually, get some things right. But first, I want to address a couple thoughts I have about this show. Okay, so first of all, I think this speech that Mon Mothma gave is very ironic. I agree with every word in the speech. However, it's worth noting that the Empire doctored the video of this speech and CGI'd it to make her say something different. Do you remember that Star Wars Rebels episode where she gave a speech and she says different things to what she said in this Andor episode?
This Chambers, hold on the truth, was finally lost on the Gorman Plaza. What took place yesterday, what happened yesterday on Gorman, was unprovoked genocide. I name the Emperor himself for ordering the brutal attacks on the people of Gorman, imposing his tyranny under the pretense of security. We cannot allow this evil to stand.
Wow, did she really say that about the Emperor?
Some people are saying that's a retcon, and I say no, that's not a retcon. What happened was the Empire CGI'd the speech to make her say something different to what she said in the original speech. That way it was easier to paint Mon Mothma as a bad guy. And what's ironic is that this speech was literally about evil empires doctoring the truth and just telling the narrative they wanted to. So the Empire just effectively proved Mon's point there. Look, you can even see she wears a different outfit in different episodes, so the Empire couldn't even be bothered to CGI the right outfit. Okay, so the other thing I want to say is that when Mon Mothma escapes the Senate building, I'm not quite sure how realistic that is. This is slap bang in the middle of Coruscant. You'd think the Empire would have thousands of stormtroopers on standby to just flood every corridor. I think if the Empire was genuinely taking security seriously, Mon Mothma and Cassian would have just been surrounded by 100 stormtroopers within 10 seconds. Am I being a bit too generous to the Empire here? Were they taking security, not as well as I expected them to or something? You'll remember in the last episode I predicted there was no way she could escape the temple, because they'd all be the stormtroopers. Therefore I predicted she hologrammed in. But no, turns out the Empire was just super incompetent and can't catch 2 people running open in the streets. And then I realised that might be the point.
What, to steal from the Empire? What do you need? A uniform, some dirty hands, and an Imperial toolkit. They're so proud of themselves, they don't even care. They're so fat and satisfied, they can't imagine it.
Can't imagine what?
That someone like me would ever get inside their house, walk their floors, spit in their food, take their gear.
The point here is the Empire is so confident in their own invincibility, they don't bother to tighten up that much on security, because how could a rebel ever get slap bang into the middle of Coruscant? And that's their downfall. Like on the Titanic, they were so confident the ship couldn't sink they didn't pack that many lifeboats, and so when a problem actually did happen, they couldn't solve it. And also, I do want to say that it is just the Empire's own fault here. Literally last year, Dr. Gorst was blown to bits in the middle of Coruscant. Dr. Gorst's lab was a top secret thing that only 2 out of dozens of ISB supervisors knew about. How on earth do you not choose to tighten up on security after that? Why? The only possibility I can think is that maybe the Empire wants to keep all the senators on side, and if the senators keep getting stormtrooper guns pointed at them, stormtroopers patrolling every corridor they walk in, maybe the Senate might be a bit less supportive of Emperor Palpatine because they're getting mad about the security. But equally, the Senate does seem to be very loyal to Palpatine and buy the idea that they need more security here.
Martyrs who gave everything on the brutal streets of Gorman.
So in other words, I'm just saying that the Empire are full of stupid idiots. So next up, the KX units were absolutely terrifying. And we never truly appreciated how terrifying they were until now. In Rogue One, we saw K2SO fight off an entire army of stormtroopers, and we were really impressed. But that isn't that scary though. What's really scary is when you see him just throwing people left and right, kicking the barrier all the way across the town centre or whatever. Let's do a show of hands here. What would make you more afraid for your life? If A, Darth Vader came up to you on the street in a threatening manner, or if B, a KX security droid came up to you on the street in a threatening manner. I will admit that Darth Vader is objectively more dangerous than one of these droids. However, these droids look and appear so much more terrifying than him. I am sorry. I also liked how they didn't glorify this genocide and this massacre. Even in the Battle of Naboo, when the Gungans fought the battle droids, they did try to glorify the battle, like all films glorify war. But instead, for quite a lot of the massacre, they didn't even bother putting dramatic music in the background. Because what music are you going to play? I mean, we all know what's going to happen eventually. In a normal battle, like the Battle of Naboo, when you see one of the bad guys die, then even though you know the bad guys still have the upper hand, seeing a stormtrooper die, or a battle droid die, gives you a bit of hope that the good guys might win. But in this battle, you see so many stormtroopers falling, but you know how it's going to end. Even if we didn't watch Star Wars Rebels and we didn't know what the Gorman massacre was going to cause, we know exactly what's going to happen. The stormtroopers have them boxed in. And that's what makes it unfathomably sad that even hours before this scene starts, you still know there is simply no chance whatsoever of a happy ending. So before we get back to rewriting the bingo card, I just want to say that I'm really, really impressed with whatever Mon Mothma's assistant is here.
Let's move ahead.
Stand down, everyone!
What are you doing?
Shut up! Back off! This is an ISB authorized arrest. Call your supervisor now. Back away! That means you.
She's a rebel spy!
I genuinely gave a round of applause after we did that, you know, because I was so massively impressed by his quick thinking skills to come up with a genius plan. Simple. Accuse her of doing exactly what you're doing. All three of these episodes, I know people have been layering praise on the last two episodes, but even the first one, episode 7, just kept you on the edge of your seat and took you on an emotional roller coaster. Towards the end of episode 7, when we realised he was going to assassinate dead Ramiro, or going to try to, you felt the tension building up, because you knew for a fact that something was going to go horribly wrong with this assassination, but you didn't know what. Yet you could barely bring yourself to keep watching because it was so painful, and yet you still had to keep watching. Okay, now time to rewrite that bingo card. I've already come to the conclusion that some of the characters are going to die, and some of them are just going to disappear off into the galaxy and never be seen again, probably culled by the Empire eventually. So the first thing I want to do is watch the trailer for Star Wars Andor again, and compile a list of all the video clips from the trailer that haven't yet appeared in the first 3 arcs, so we know vaguely what's going to happen in the next arc. I'm going to play the clips on screen now.
What a swell party this is.
If you purchased a vehicle on finance between 8 BBY and, say, 28,000 BBY, you could be owed up to 100,000 credits in compensation. You see, the land speeder manufacturers have been hiding the credits from you, and this isn't just a theory, they were caught. An Imperial Supreme Court case 3 years ago in 12 BBY, during the era of the Rakatan Empire, discovered a dark secret about the land speeder manufacturers. They discovered that one day, millions of people on the planet of Alderaan suddenly stopped making payments on their land speeder, and the manufacturers didn't do anything about it. What this means is you can just stop making payments and the land speeder manufacturers can't force you to pay. They can't do anything. And in other words, if they have been making you pay payments on your land speeder, then they are taking the money from you and you have to be compensated. So fill out all your personal details using this link and get paid.
Resistance is absurd.
It's a weapon.
Okay, so to my memory, that's every clip from the trailer that hasn't yet appeared in the Andor series, and so we know that all of that is going to happen in the next arc. So first let's talk about Dedra. So the only shot we get of Dedra is when you see a bunch of stormtroopers walking down the corridor, and then they turn the corridor into Dedra's office, and it's sort of implied that they're going to kill Dedra, and so there's one of two ways they can take this. Either A, the stormtroopers are sent there by someone like Krennic, for example, on the way to kill, arrest, or just do something horrible to Dedra, or option 2, these stormtroopers are rebel spies plotting an assassination. And I like the first one better, and here's why. So Dedra's character arc is somebody of complete and utter loyalty to the Empire. She was raised in an Imperial kinderblock. If you watch interviews with the actors, they pretty much solely focus on how completely loyal Dedra is to the Empire. She's given everything to the Empire, she's worked so hard in it, she's destroyed her own conscience, she's devoted all of her loyalty to it, and now they're just going to what? Kill her? Betray her? Because when somebody high up in the Empire that realises she's politically inconvenient, they just get rid of her like that? And the message of this is that fascist authoritarian regimes don't care about you. You could devote absolutely everything you have to it. You could devote every spare second of your life. No, not even every spare second. Just every second of your life, like Dedra has. And they will not thank you in any way. They won't hesitate to get rid of you the second you become inconvenient. The other potential interpretation is that these stormtroopers are rebel spies here to kill her. Now, this is possible, considering we know they presumably break into an Imperial base. We see K2SO whack that guard away, so we know they're going to break into that base, and the guard has the exact same uniform as these stormtroopers, so we know that it's the same base. Better yet, we see Melchi firing, presumably he's in that same base, so that second one is also a possibility, but I think if the rebels kill Dedra, I'm not sure what kind of message we could take from that. Maybe it's that now that she's no longer useful to the Empire, they just don't care about her anymore, and so they're not going to bother to send any reinforcements to save her when the rebels come to kill her. And so that would also have the exact same message as if the Empire just killed her. So that's another possibility. But in my opinion, I think it's most likely that, well, first of all, Dedra has to die in the next arc, but that the Empire is going to turn on her and kill her to represent how authoritarian regimes don't care about anybody. Next up, Luthen. So in my last video about Andor, I pointed out that Luthen makes 2 references to burning over the course of the show, one in Season 1, one in Season 2, and I couldn't help but wonder if maybe that was foreshadowing that Luthen was going to die by burning to death. However, in the trailer, we see smoke and then he looks down as if somebody's just set his legs on fire or something, and now he's on fire. I don't expect this to happen, he's obviously not going to burn to death, but I'm just going to put this theory out there on the off chance that he does burn to death, and then I can say, woohoo! I got it right. Still, one of the slots on last week's bingo card was Luthen falls out with his allies, and while he is definitely growing apart from his allies, Vel and Bix don't work for him anymore, he hasn't actively become an enemy of his allies yet. And when I say fall out with his allies, I want Andor and the rest of them to just completely shut off communications, break their alliance with him, possibly fight him, but I'm not sure about that. This just points out that being so ultra paranoid as Luthen is, even though he has to do that, will inevitably turn you against everybody. So I think that's how Luthen's gonna die. Claire might be the only person more paranoid than he is, so I do wonder if she also has to die as well. Let's go back to Luthen. The only other shot we get of Luthen is him walking down these stairs, and I don't recognise these stairs from anywhere. Maybe if I knew which building these stairs were from, I could tell which building he was walking out of and then make a guess, but we can't really derive anything from this scene. So moving on, Claire. Claire gets, I think, 3 pieces of screen time in the trailers. These are both trailers, by the way. And on 2 of those 3 occasions, I thought she was Bix when I first watched the trailer, and then every other time I watched the trailer, I also thought she was Bix, until I finally had to edit the trailer, which forced me to squint and look at it closely, and I realised, oh wait, no, that's not Bix. That's Claire, so sorry Claire and sorry Bix, I guess. It's like, in this first one, someone grabs Cassian Andor's face, and it looks like they're about to kiss him, and I don't think they're about to kiss, but I just assumed it was Bix, and then I had to pause it and look. No, turns out that's Claire, and in fairness to me, we only got like a shot of half her face, but then later on in the trailer, she says something like, they're building a weapon.
It's a weapon.
And we got like a full shot of her face, so I'm not sure how on earth I thought that was Bix, but like, I'm not good at recognising faces, okay? I'm not sure how many predictions I have for her, except she dies because she falls out with everybody due to her paranoia, which is exactly what I came up with for Luthen, so I'm not quite sure what I have to predict for her. If anybody has any predictions for Claire, that'd be great. Lonnie? Okay, guys, my theory about Lonnie is I think Lonnie's already dead. We saw in the last arc, Lonnie was one of only 2 supervisors that knew about Dr. Gorst's location, so when the rebels blow Dr. Gorst to bits in the centre of Coruscant, well, it becomes very easy for the Empire to find out who told the rebels, and so I think what happened is that Lonnie got caught, and then either Lonnie killed himself so he didn't have to talk, or Luthen had Lonnie killed so that Lonnie didn't tell the ISB where Luthen's hideout was. Either way, I think probably what happened was the ISB caught Lonnie and he's dead. So actually, I think I am going to take that square off of my bingo card, thank you very much. Perrin and Leader. So I predicted they would die in the 3rd arc of Andor, and the reason for this was because nobody would take the risk of joining a rebellion unless their family was already dead, because once you join a rebellion against the fascist regime is going to punish you by killing your entire family. So I think they have to die to allow Mon Mothma to join the rebellion properly. The problem is they had to cut out 75% of the screen time in these last 4 seasons, remember, just to fit it into one season. So you can definitely tell there were a lot of subplots that I think I would like to have seen fleshed out a lot more, and they just couldn't, because they just didn't have the time. We do not know what happened to Leader and Perrin, but we know that the next arc involves breaking into an Imperial base, probably killing dead Ramiro, and a lot of conversations and arguments between Rebels and Coruscant, and also finding out the existence of a big weapon, which we later find out is Leicester. And we also don't get any more scenes of Mon Mothma in the trailer, so if there are no more scenes of Mon Mothma and Leader and Perrin, then I'm just gonna go and say that I think Perrin and Leader probably aren't going to appear in the rest of it. Put it this way, if Perrin and Leader weren't already dead before the most recent arc of Andor, they certainly are now, because once again, the Empire will punish her entire family if Mon Mothma properly joins the rebellion. So what's probably going to happen is that the Empire's going to show up at wherever Perrin and Leader live and shoot them dead after torturing them. Bix, I think we all know that she isn't coming back, we're just not going to see her again. Or at least I know that, but then every other Star Wars YouTuber that I've watched so far has said that Bix may never see Cassian Andor again. And I like how they use the word may, as if there's absolutely any chance in all the galaxy that Bix will ever see Cassian again. Out of, what, 3.2 million planets? What are the odds that 2 beings happen to run into each other randomly? Like, there's no way. The chance is negligible. It's not going to happen. And I've already said that I think it's a better plot that not every character dies. I think some of them aren't going to get a death scene. They're just going to disappear off into the galaxy on their own path, never to be seen again, at least not by the Star Wars fandom. And for Bix, on the other hand, if she makes such a massive decision to leave Cassian Andor, I think it reduces the weight of that decision if she just sees him again and gets back together. The same way that if a character dies and they bring the character back to life, that sort of lessens the weight of the death and it lowers the stakes, because you know you can just bring people back to life. Especially because I mentioned this in my last video about Andor. Cassian says in Rogue One that he lost everything.
You're not the only one who lost everything.
And you wouldn't really say that if you got back together with Bix. I'm sorry, I just don't think that. So with that, here's my official predictions for which characters die in the show, and which characters don't die in the show, but it's sort of implied that they probably die, and if they don't die in the show, they're definitely gonna die in the war against the Empire, and they definitely lose contact with all the main characters like Cassian Andor. Okay, let's start off strong. Dedra, more like dead. Luthen, more like shaking hands with Lucifer. That one wasn't funny, I'm sorry. Who's next? Perrin and Leader, I think they're going to just, like, never be seen again. They probably got killed by the Empire, but we don't know. Lonnie, once again, we're never going to see him again, but he probably got killed by the Empire. Actually, the fact that we get 2 scenes of Clea and Cassian in Luthen's hideout, or Luthen and Clea's hideout, sorry, without Luthen there, implies that Luthen is already dead. So, in other words, I think that Luthen is going to die first, and then Clea and Cassian are going to have a couple of scenes in Luthen's hideout together. Clea's going to die. Bix, probably never going to see her again. Oh no. Vel and Wilman are the other 2, and I'm sorry, but I really just don't know what's going to happen to them. So I'm just going to leave that up to your suggestions, because I'm not quite sure. So in conclusion, this is my official bingo card for the 4th arc of Andor. This one better have a bunch of correct things on it. Yay!